Story Time is brought to you by
न्यूयॉर्क में पाकिस्तानी अमेरिकन की रहनुमाई। पाकिस्तान अमेरिकन एसोसिएशन ऑफ न्यूयॉर्क का खासा है। अमेरिकन पाकिस्तानियों के बाइज्जत और बावकार मकाम के लिए कोशां। पैनी का हर कदम आपके हम कदम।
Assalamu alaikum, children of the world, especially living in the UK, the US and Canada. And welcome to another great session of Story Time, when we listen to great stories from Quran. And we are here today, once again, with another great story, and I'm sure you're going to love this story. But before we start the story, let's see who's here with us.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's Isha with you.
Hey, this is Moaz from grade 4.
Hello, Mas.
Hey, it's Harim from class 7.
Okay.
Hi, it's Larry.
How are you, Larry? Good. And you know, our today's story is about Hazrat Musa. And this is a very long story with lots of events and very interesting things to know about. And we will be doing this story in 2 or maybe 3 sessions. You know, in Quran, Hazrat Musa's story is the longest. Other prophets' stories are explained in few ayahs, maybe 6 or 7 or 5. But Hazrat Musa's story is done in 70 ayahs. 70 sentences have gone into Hazrat Musa's story. And it comes in Quran over and over and over again. So we will be doing some time on it. We will be spending time with this story because there are so many events about Hazrat Musa. Okay? Now Hazrat Musa came 3,000 years after Hazrat Adam, who was the first human being. So from Hazrat Adam to Hazrat Nuh is 1,000 years. Hazrat Nuh to Hazrat Ibrahim is another 1,000 years.
Century.
1,000 years. Century is 100 years. 1 millennia, right? 1,000 years is 1 millennia, and 100 years is 1 century. So Hazrat Ibrahim to then Musa is another 1,000 years. So 1,000 year from Hazrat Adam to Hazrat Nuh, then 1,000 year from Nuh to Ibrahim, and 1,000 year from Ibrahim to Hazrat Musa. So altogether it becomes 3,000 years. So now at that time, the people, and he was from the people of Bani Israel. But people of Bani Israel, the children of Hazrat Yaqub, lived in Egypt. You remember how Hazrat Yusuf took all his family to Egypt and they started to live there? That's where they lived. But by then, they were not in power anymore. They were now the slaves of Egyptian people. They had lost all their glory and all their power. And the people of Egypt didn't treat them very well, because pharaohs and the people of Egypt treated them as slaves, as their laborers. Pharaohs were the great kings of Egypt who have built the pyramids.
Pyramids which are located in Egypt now.
Right.
They are among the 7 wonders.
Yes, exactly.
So, Pharaoh was the name of a particular king, or it
No,
was a
title. Like today, kings are called monarchs, His Excellency, Basha in Farsi, or Malik in Arabic. Same way at that time, the kings were called the pharaohs, or Fir'aun in their language, and they were very powerful. So they made all the people of Bani Israel their slaves. Now, the way Hazrat Musa was born and raised was very interesting as well. See what happened, that one night the great pharaoh of that time had a dream and it was a strange dream. You know what was the dream? The Pharaoh saw that a fire has come up from Palestine, the land of Bani Israel, and it has moved to Egypt, where the great pharaohs ruled, and it burned everything in Egypt. And in the morning, he came to his court and he called some magicians and some of his wise men, and he said, "Listen, I had this strange dream last night. Can you tell me what it means?" And his wise men listened to this dream, and they said, "It's not a good dream, great Pharaoh. It means that there will be somebody from Bani Israel here who will grow up and he will destroy you." And Pharaoh was very much worried listening to this strange news. And you know what he said? He said, "Start killing all the babies that are born to Bani Israel from today." So every time a baby was born, he was killed. Every time a baby was born, he was killed. But only the boys, not the girls. Because the magicians told Pharaoh that something like this.
He was a king?
Who, Pharaoh? Yes, Pharaoh was the great king. And he was told that the person who will destroy you will be a boy, a male, a man from Bani Israel. So they let all the girls live and killed all the boys.
But if they killed all the boys, there will be no person or farmer to make room.
Yes, exactly.
Why they kill only boys?
They killed all the boys because they knew, the dream said that there will be a boy who will kill Pharaoh, who will destroy Pharaoh.
He didn't know what the baby is.
Yes, so he wanted to kill all the baby boys. So no man from Bani Israel can destroy Pharaoh. Now, of course, these were the slaves. Bani Israel were the slaves. So the slave is the man who works for another person. And he is punished and he is suppressed. He has to get food for the work he does, and he cannot live freely. A slave is a man who is not free to go anywhere he wants to or she wants to. He has to live in one place under the control of another person. That person is called a slave. So now all these Bani Israel were the slaves. They worked for the Egyptians. And now when their babies start getting killed, the Egyptians got very worried that who will work in our fields? Because they were not used to working in fields. They were so rich. And they had all these Bani Israels to do the hard work for them.
So were the Bani Israels Muslims or believers?
Bani Israel were Muslims, but the Egyptians were not Muslims. They prayed to idols and especially to their king. Their king was their god. So now when their slaves were started to become less and less, they went to the Pharaoh and they complained. They said that we are not used to working in fields anymore, and you are killing all the baby boys. Who will work in our fields? And Pharaoh understood. He said, that's a good point. So he changed his rule. And the new rule was that let babies, boys live 1 year and kill the next, born in the next year.
So if that boy will be born in the year that
Right.
the children will not be killed.
Right. Isn't that a strange rule?
Yes.
No one thought of this. But they just made this rule.
it could also happen that in 1 year the alternate will
Exactly.
be no babies, and the other year there will be no babies.
Exactly. So now Hazrat Musa had an elder brother. His name was Harun. And the year Harun was born was the year when baby boys were not killed. So he lived. And next year, when Hazrat Musa was born, was the year when baby boys were killed. So now Hazrat Musa's mother was worried to death that her son will be killed. So Allah sent this special message to his mother. And you know what was the message?
No.
Yes, Allah said that make a small boat, right? Take a small basket, cover it, make a small boat, tie a rope with it, and put Musa in this small baby boat and tie it at the end near the bank of the river and let it float in the bushes in the water. So when the soldiers came looking in the house for the baby boys, Hazrat Musa's mother would put little Musa in this bucket, in this boat, and tie the rope, and the boat would just float in the river near the bushes where no one could see it. So soldiers would come over and over again, but only to the houses of Bani Israel, looking if there were any baby boys born. And as they came into the town, into the neighborhood, Hazrat Musa's mother would quickly take this tiny boat with the rope and put Hazrat Musa into the river. And then one day, when she did that and came back into the house, soldiers rushed into the house and started looking here and there, listening to the cry of a baby. And they asked her, they said, "Do you have a small baby boy born this year?" And she said, "No, there is no baby boy born this year." So they kept looking, and then they left.
So they came every month?
Every other day looking for baby boys, because the king was so afraid of his dream, of what he saw in his dream. But that day when the soldiers came into the house, the rope that Hazrat Musa was tied with, his boat was tied with, went loose, and the boat went floating in the river.
It was tied to the bank of the river.
Yes, but the rope got open. And when Hazrat Musa came to the bank of the river with her daughter, Hazrat Musa's elder sister, there was no boat, only the rope.
You mean the mother of Musa?
Yes, and his sister, Musa's sister. He had an elder sister as well. Boat was gone, and only the rope was there. And Hazrat Musa's mother, she knew what has happened. She knew that it was her mistake, that she didn't tie the rope properly. She said to her daughter, "Go running by the bank of the river and find your brother." And she went running by the river, and she saw this tiny boat with Hazrat Musa going all the way into the river, way ahead of her. And there was this great palace of Pharaoh, and the river went right in front of the palace. And Pharaoh was sitting in the courtyard of his palace with his wife Asiya. just having good time, spending their evening, afternoon. And they saw this baby coming in front of them in this tiny boat. And suddenly, Pharaoh's wife Asiya got up and she said to soldiers, "Go, get this baby. I want this." And
She had children?
no, she had no children. So the soldiers jumped into the river and they swam and brought this baby to the shore and handed the baby over to Asiya, Queen Asiya.
So was Queen Asiya the believer?
Yes, she became a believer. Yes, of course. And Asiya looked into the baby, and Hazrat Musa was very beautiful, nice, and a very healthy baby. So she left the baby and she wanted to keep the baby. But when Pharaoh looked at his dress and the way he looked, he said, "This is a child from Bani Israel. We cannot keep him. He must be killed." And Asiya said, "No, I want to keep this baby. And I will raise this baby. And this baby will be like my son." And Pharaoh said that, "What is the guarantee that he is not my enemy? He is not my killer?" And Asiya said, "Because I will raise him in the palace. He will be loyal to us." And then he took the baby with her in the palace. Now they tried to give food to this baby, and Hazrat Musa would not take any food. He would not drink any milk.
Why?
This is Allah's command. This is how Allah has planned it. And then once again, when baby kept crying, didn't eat anything for 3 days, Allah said to Hazrat Musa's mother, "Send your daughter again to the palace and let your daughter go there and tell Asiya that she knows a lady who can feed this baby." And when Hazrat Musa's sister went to the palace, she said, "I know a lady who can feed this baby." Asiya said, "Are you sure?" She said, "Yes. Send your people with me and give this baby to me, and you will see."
Did Asiya care for the baby?
Yes, she cared a lot. That's why they let the baby go back to Hazrat Musa's mother. So the soldiers and the servants, they took the baby, and this little girl guided them all to her mother, Hazrat Musa's mother. And baby immediately started to drink milk. And they were all happy. They quickly ran back to the palace and they said, "Yes, the baby is drinking milk." So everyone was happy. So half of the day, Hazrat Musa would stay in his own house with his mother, and rest of the time he would stay in palace with the queen. And that's how he was raised in the palace of Pharaoh. But everyone knew that he is like Bani Israel, because the way he looked was different from the Egyptians.
Why the king didn't care for the baby?
King was afraid of this baby because he thought that he might be killed by this man, the baby.
He literally didn't care for him?
No, never. Only Asiya cared for him. So that's why he cared for the baby, because his wife cared for the baby.
When the box came to the palace, didn't the soldiers thought that who have left that baby in the in that box.
Yes, no one thought of it.
And
See, even kings.
Hazrat Musa's sister also took them to
Yes.
her own house.
Right.
So didn't they realize at that
No,
time?
they didn't. This is how Allah blinded them, how Allah confused them. Allah controlled their thought, so they never thought of this. Exactly. See how Allah controls people's thoughts? I mean, when the rope was untied, when the baby was in the river, that rope was untied by the angel. Allah told angel to go and untie the rope so the baby can reach the Pharaoh's palace. So Pharaoh would be the guardian, the people who would raise Pharaoh, raise Musa. You know why Allah did all this? To show us that if He wants to save somebody, no one can kill that person. See, for so many months and years, Pharaoh was killing the children of Bani Israel, right? And then finally, when that person came, the prophet came, he was raised in his enemy's palace. So if Allah wants to protect somebody, that person will be protected in the palace, in the enemy's house. This is the whole message. So there is still a lot more to come. You like it so far?
Yeah.
Isn't this whole so interesting?
Yes.
Okay. So children, tomorrow we will be here with the next part of Prophet Musa's great true story from Quran. Until then, we request you to keep obeying Allah, keep offering your salah, and keep listening to your parents. Till then, Assalamu alaikum.
Story time was brought to you by
न्यूयॉर्क में पाकिस्तानी अमेरिकन की रहनुमाई। पाकिस्तान अमेरिकन एसोसिएशन ऑफ न्यूयॉर्क का खासा है। अमेरिकन पाकिस्तानियों के बाइज्जत और बावकार मकाम के लिए कोशां। पैनी का हर कदम आपके हम कदम।